Hello everyone. Hi. Thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. You could obviously be elsewhere in this impenetrable building, drinking too much coffee and not having enough food, and talking about stuff with other people. So it's a real honor for me to be here representing Miniclip and giving this keynote on the industry values track, which, as Daniel mentioned, I think is a really important topic for us in this moment in our sector of this industry. So I'm Jamie. I've worked at Miniclip for nearly 9 years. So I was 7 or 8 years old when I started there, and now I've seen it go through quite a few changes. It's quite a big company now, and I'm privileged to serve there as the head of external developer relations. So it's very interesting meeting people sort of across the breadth of the industry who are working in all different kinds of contexts. Welcome, please. I just wondered whether you would indulge me just to get a sense of where you guys are at in your organisations and the situations that you're working in. If you're working in a team that's, say, less than 10 people, could you raise your hands, like real small teams? There's a few guys, because obviously, you know, Miniclip itself was literally like a couple of people in a room like one time. Up to about 50 people in the organisation. Yeah, probably about a third there. What about 50 to 100? It's a good size, because I think over 100? Anyone working in a super evil megacorp? Like literally, quite literally, people might actually be doing that. They all work at Miniclip. So the challenge changes, I think, as the organisation grows. I think what's going to be interesting, and hopefully you can stay for a few more of the sessions, maybe some of you will be presenting or participating in those later. They're going to address various aspects of the idea of values in the industry, and hopefully they'll touch on things relating to team relationships, relationship to the organisation and the individual and the team, and then the impact that we can have in the communities and societies in which we work. So yeah, as I said, at Miniclip, we've grown quite significantly. When I joined, it was probably just about 100 people. I think in sociological studies, human villages, those communities tend to be about 100 to 115 people. And in that situation, you can kind of have some kind of relationship with everyone else who's there. You can at least know their name, and they'll know you, and they'll know something about you. But yeah, we're a bigger organisation now, and just a bit about who Miniclip are, if you don't know. That is part of the sponsorship privilege we can impress upon you, our enormous girth. We develop and publish, we distribute highly engaging mobile games, and we're reaching now up to about 275 million monthly active users worldwide. So, you know, culturally, we touch a lot of different people in a lot of different contexts. To do that, we've grown since 2001. Highlights of some of our titles there, and you'll see that we are now actually owned, as most of the rest of the gaming industry is, by Tencent, which is a great honour for us, and it's really lifted our heads up in terms of the possibilities of certainly corporate life in the gaming industry. Historically, our business was built on the web, and we pivoted to mobile, which was a very wise thing to do, as it turned out. But we continue operations on all those platforms. We have now 300 employees in 4 locations in the Miniclip organisation. There is a small corporate HQ in Neuchâtel. I work in a kind of pseudo HQ in London. We have a very large development facility in Porto Salvo, Lisbon, in Portugal, where most of our first-party developed games are operated, and in Genova in Italy, We have a smaller team specializing more in kind of Unity 3D. From our point of view, we've really found success in sports, and we've definitely doubled down on that over the years. We would claim to be the #1 sports publisher worldwide. We're now reaching, as you can see there, 36 million daily active users, 275 monthly active users, and we have a really nice business now, and we're able to address those audiences with content for our existing titles and new as they come. As I said, the increase in size has led us, well, firstly to develop a human resources function in the company. I think that tends to come around the 100-person mark, and you need it. It's a gearing thing, like, you know, you need one HR person for at least every 100 employees, I would say, and some of you may have been through that experience of that now becoming, you know, part of your organization. I think when we think about those sorts of numbers that we've been very, very fortunate to achieve, it indicates, you know, news that we see from around the industry. The games are a huge part of people's lifestyles, in that everyone, it seems, has a phone. Certainly in Western markets, the market is fairly saturated with ownership of smartphones. And in terms of spend, according to App Annie recently, 75% of money spent on phones is spent in games. Not only that, from an earlier report reported in TechCrunch, 33% of all app downloads, 74% of spend then, and 10% of all time spent is in games. An amazing 2.4 billion people, 1/3 of the population of people, are engaged in products which we make and operate. So that's not just, you know, people using all the various other apps. You know, it's such a significant chunk of time devoted to games. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And as New Zoo reports, within games itself, mobile is by far the biggest sector and the fastest growing, $68.2 billion. So the point I would like to make, as a result of understanding our position, wherever we are, you know, in our careers or in the working context that we have, we are all part of a massively impactful industry that touches, at some level, billions of people around the world. And inevitably, with great power comes great responsibility. So, question for you guys. Why do we, the mobile games industry, exist? Thoughts? What do you think?
Cash money.
Cash money. To make money. That's why we exist. Anything else? It's good. It's part of it, right? We wouldn't do it if not. What's that?
Entertainment.
Entertainment. Right. What else? Anything? Cash money, entertainment. What does entertainment mean?
Socializing.
Social ID?
Socializing.
Socializing. Good. Yeah, I think that's right. And it's perhaps a unique part of the entertainment that people get. Well, let me propose to you, breaking down what does entertainment mean here. We're really about addressing 3 basic human psychological needs: relatedness, socializing, autonomy, and a sense of mastery and competence. Now, some of you may recognize, if you've studied this stuff, this is related to something called self-determination theory. You may know something about it. If the slide will move to the next slide, we can hear something about it.
Our needs are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. We've heard some things about them today, but I'm just going to briefly say what they are. For us, relatedness is feeling cared for and connected to others. It has to do with a sense of belonging, a feeling that you matter to the
Can you
other people
rerun it
that are
with
there.
audio?
And relatedness is enhanced
Yeah.
not just by
You're hearing the voice of Richard Ryan, who's one of the psychologists who developed this theory at a conference in 2000.
Our three basic needs are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. We've heard some things about them today, but I'm just going to briefly say what they are. For us, relatedness is feeling cared for and connected to others. It has to do with a sense of belonging, a feeling that you matter to the other people that are there. And relatedness is enhanced not just by people treating you warmly and including you, but it's also enhanced by your giving to them and you're being able to matter in their lives. That's part of what helps us feel connected. So it's not a one-way street in relatedness. It has to do with both. And again, we'll show evidence to that effect. Competence is really commonly studied in psychology. Most theories of psychology would probably agree with us on this one point, which is competence is essential to wellness, to feel effective in your environment, to have some sense of mastery of the things that are important to you. Very, very important, and environments can have a big impact on that experience. And then finally, finally autonomy, which has been probably the most controversial, but also the most central of our psychological needs in the sense of research and our integrative mission, so to speak. Autonomy refers to behavior that is self-endorsed, that you agree with and find congruent within yourself. And so autonomy here means that you feel choiceful, self-initiating, and when you're fully autonomous, you're wholeheartedly behind the thing that you're doing. And again, because of that wholeheartedness, that's why performance tends to be better when you're acting out of autonomous motives.
So this leads me to ask you really, can we, in terms of developing a vision, have a more positive impact on the lives of our players and colleagues? I think that we in organizations tend to go through this sort of human organization process of developing missions and vision statements and values. And I think that there is a connection here between what we do for our players, our customers, by creating this sense of relatedness, autonomy, mastery or competence. I'm changing it to an M because it makes sense if you also add purpose and you can remember it's ramp. Creating this feeling which makes our game so engaging and retaining is based on these psychological concepts. And this afternoon you're going to hear how this may apply in the workplace. Kate Edwards is going to speak about mental health in the context of work and how important it is to manage one's health in that aspect. Sabrina Kamanu is going to speak about motivation, and this intrinsic motivational model is I think, essential to really getting the most out of people and to making them feel happy and engaged at work. She's going to be talking about her experience of doing that with leaders at King. I think you can also apply some of these principles about how we show up in our communities and society. You'll hear a panel later on talking about games for good. Also something from the UN about gaming can influence policy in the fields of environmental change. So, can I suggest to you that we collectively have a responsibility now and a mission, particularly in what we've chosen to call pocket gaming, also known as mobile gaming. Do we dare to be the most democratic, diverse, inclusive and fair sector in the games industry? We hear a lot of stories about toxicity in the workplace, certainly public policy issues, which we're not completely innocent of. But can we do something positively to address that in how we show up? Later on you'll hear about sustainable diversity with Leanne and Marion, who will speak about society's values and how that could need more attention even than our workplace behaviours. Also, and I'm sure all right-thinking people will agree, work should be a place of psychological safety, and for that we really need to guarantee that our workplaces are free of harassment of any kind, and there'll be a panel to discuss that later. So again, our organizations may develop values, and they do that because as we become larger, we become more diverse, we need a set of guidelines and standards which are going to inform our behavior. enable us to work together productively and rationally, and I think, with a degree of shared humanity, which can very quickly leave the room, usually as a result of miscommunication. But certainly at Miniclip, the idea of always assuming good intent, of really trying to see things from each other's point of view is so super important. And we're in a process now of defining our values for our organization. It's a work in progress, but that is something that now at our size and scale is absolutely essential for us to have sustained growth in the future. So, to finish off this afternoon, you'll hear how this might apply creatively, and Future Play will talk to us about how in their company they translate these kinds of behaviors into creativity to develop their business and to address the needs of their players. That's my time. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So that was a great talk. I really enjoyed that. Okay, guys, do you have any questions? Question? No? Everything is crystal? Okay, perfect.
Hi there. How are you addressing the choosing your values once you have a company this big? And how do you make sure everyone fits within those, or that everyone agrees with them, everyone wants to live by them once you're starting with a company this big already?
It's a process of consultation, so the values come from the people who work at Miniclip. I guess the guys who started the company back in 2001, a couple of friends in a bedroom, they always had an ethos which was summarized in the mantra, work hard and play harder. And so there's always been a sense of sort of that there should be a sense of playfulness at work. The company's certainly become more serious, and lots of other people have joined, but you create a process. It's maybe mediated by someone external, or in our case, we're lucky to have some really great people working in people organization who have some skills in this. People express themselves, and this can be distilled into a set of values, which are, they're guidelines, right? I don't think anyone expects us to be perfect. We're not constructing a sort of police state where every sort of statement and behavior is examined or, subject to undue scrutiny. But it's like, guys, this is what we want this place to be collectively, right? So can we all live up to that? And it's a process, it's a challenge, especially to leaders. I suppose that's the point to get to. In the end, there are senior people in the company, people with a certain designated leadership function, and so that you're really looking to those guys to step up and behave in this way. And they don't always. And again, you need a way of saying, look, calling them out, or a safe way to do it if it feels like that personality is too big to challenge. But everyone needs to live by it, and everyone needs to feel that they can challenge it when things aren't right. They should always be that way, I think.